Now, let's create some blend shapes for our eyelids. The first thing I'm gonna do is to duplicate my eyelashes geo, and I will move them to the blend shapes group and rename them with the blend shape geo suffix. So we are going to have our eyelashes locally also. Then I'm going to do a grab deformer from my eyelashes to the head. Both are the blend shape meshes, and I'm going to click deform, wrap. So now my eyelashes are following the head, just as we did with the brows. Now let's create some blend shapes for our eyelids. We already have a lot of blend shapes here, and it's hard to see them, so I'm going to start grouping them. I'm going to click all my mouth shapes, including the lips, these ones, and I'm going to click Ctrl G. I'm going to rename this later. I'm going to grab now my nose and cheek blend shapes and click Ctrl G. Now all my brow blend shapes. So I'm going to rename these groups, just like that. And I am going to close them, and I'm going to create a new target for the eyelids. I'm going to start with 2. Then I'm going to group them also in one group that is called eyelid blend shapes. The first thing I'm going to do with these blend shapes is to have one blend shape that moves this eyelid down, completely down, like that. And another one from the low eyelid to move this up. So I'm going to rename these blend shapes, and I'm going to sculpt them. I'm gonna select these vertices. And I'm probably gonna snap it. I'm gonna isolate this mesh, and then I'm gonna snap this vertex into this one. I'm gonna do that with all of them. Let's see how it is looking. So for this movement, I don't want to affect anything on the low eyelid, so I am going to remove those weights with my target tool. I'm going to actually erase all this movement. I'm gonna maintain my corners there in both blend shapes, because I don't want to have influence there. And let's see how this is working. This is working better. For example, if you see, it's a little harder to get the eyelid completely closed if we don't have a topology that matches the up eyelid and the low eyelid. Here, we have 2 extra loops that we don't have here. We only have a 1 loop up and 2 loops down. It's actually hard to close this completely, so I will need to play a little bit with the values. So I'm gonna play with this loop like that, but it's always ideal to match each loop with each loop. So I think this is good enough, at least for now. And let's work on the other one. We're gonna add more detail later. So I'm gonna move this and snap it here. I will do the same with all of this. And now I'm gonna smooth all these movements with my smooth target tool. So I'm gonna click here, and then I'm going to start smoothing these shapes. Just like that. I don't actually want movement here, so I'm gonna remove that movement too. I just want neither here. So the movement is just there. Probably a little bit here, just a little bit, like very subtle. And now with the up eyelid. I'm gonna click edit. Always remember to click edit. And I'm gonna start polishing this. I'm gonna probably start removing this. I don't want any movement on my brow neither. I'm gonna start smoothing now. Just a little bit here, not too much. And now smooth all this. And to finish, I am just going to push this a little bit forward, so we can actually see like the eyeball. So once I finish my blinks, I want that when this value is at 0.5 and the low one is at 0.5, I want this to be completely closed. So I'm gonna make what is an in-between blend shape. there is a blend shape that is going to activate when this blend shape has a value of 0.5. So I am going to modify my low eyelid blend shape for that, because I see this one can go a little bit, or I'm going to modify both actually. So I'm going to do first the low and then the up. I'm going to click the blend shape in which I want an in-between target, right click, add in-between target. So now I am on a sculpting mode on another blend shape, and this blend shape activates when the up blend shape, that is this one, has a value of 0.5. That's why it says 0.5 here. That's when the blend shape is going to be activated. So this is my up eyelid, so I am going to do something like that. For example, I'm going to grab these vertices and move these ones a little bit down. I'm going to fix this on the lower one. And then I probably want this one, these two, to go also down. So I'm going to click edit again. And now when I move my blend shape, when this is at 0.5, it's going to activate this extra blend shape we just did. Now I'm going to do an in-between blend shape for the low eyelid. I'm going to right click, add in-between target, and I'm going to fix this little thing here. Something like that. I think this is good enough. And maybe I also want, when this is at 0.5, I also want some movement to the front, so it feels like there's an spherical movement. So I'm also gonna do a front movement here. Something like that. Just a little bit to all the eyelid actually. And the same for the up one. Gonna edit my in-between blend shape. And I am going to move these ones a little bit forward too. So now when I have 0.5 on both of my blend shapes, this is completely closed. Now I am going to add 2 more blend shapes, but with the opposite movement. So these are going to be blend shapes to open more the eyelids. So to avoid confusion, I'm actually going to rename these ones. Instead of down, this is going to be close. And the same for the other one. Just like that. And the new ones are going to be called the same, but with open. And I am going to start with the low eyelid open blend shape that is going to be kind of the same movement, but with the opposite direction. Something like that. And now the up one. And once I have already my movement, I'm gonna start remove all the weights that I don't want, like the corners. I don't want any influence on the lower eyelid when I move the up one, the upper one. And I'm going to smooth all this. I don't want any movement on the brows, so just to be sure, I'm gonna remove all these with my smooth tool. So something like that. And the same for the low eyelid. I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna remove all the influence that is on the cheek. And then I'm gonna start smoothing all this area. So I'm gonna remove that. I will move this a little bit backwards. And perfect. Now, I want to add some extra control to my eyelids. For example, when we have a sad expression like this one, imagine that we have our left brow in shape up and then this one down. I would like to have the ability to move this part of the eyelid up just as my eyebrow. Something like that. Imagine this shape, but without moving all this, of course. I would like to have this ability to make expressions with my eyelids. So for that, I am going to use the same technique we did with the brows. I'm going to go with my shapes. This is the closed shapes, and I am going to duplicate with Ctrl D. I don't want to duplicate the in-between. You can actually duplicate both, and it's gonna work just like that. But I don't want the in-between, so I only want the main targets. So I want this one. This is one of the duplicates, and I will duplicate these 2 times. So I have 2 duplicates. I'm gonna call them in and out. Just like that. And that means that we're going to divide this shape in 2. So it's gonna be one for this side and one for the other one. You're maybe wondering how is this going to work, but you will see at the end. So I'm going to grab all these vertices. I only want to affect this part of the eyelid. And I will click right click, paint, blend shapes. I'm going to go to my shapes, weights, and let's see. This is the left up close in. Is this one. I am going to do a Ctrl Shift I to do an inverse selection, and I'm going to replace all the other weights to 0. So now, when I move this one, it only moves this area. And I also want to have a 0.5 influence on this one, so we have a smooth transition. You can do even a more smooth transition if you do like 0.1 and 0.9, but I'm going to do this a little bit fast. So I'm just going to do it with 0.5 and 1 directly. Now I'm going to do the other shape. I'm going to do the opposite movement. I want all this to be influenced by this one. So I'm going to do an inverse selection. And I'm going to erase all the influences to the out. I'm going to replace all those weights to 0. I'm going to change this one to 0.5. So this is how it's looking. This is the out, this is the in. So they both share this loop. And together they do a full blink. So this will help us to do this kind of expressions. If you see, I will actually smooth this a little bit more because I don't like that much this. So I'm gonna take this loop. I'm gonna add an influence of 0.1 maybe. Let's see here. Okay, this is not working because I did it on the other one, but it's the same as we do that. And I'm gonna add an influence of 0.9 here. So the symmetry will be 1. So I actually want a little bit more. So I actually would like to have a straight line here. So I will remove a little bit more influence to 0.8 or 0.75 maybe. So yes, this looks a lot nicer. We have now this shape for angry expressions, for example. And we need to compensate that with the other blend shape because right now we have this weird shape. So I need to change the influence because here is 0.75, then here will be 0.25. So 0.75 plus 0.25 is 1. Remember that the summatory of all the weights needs to be 1. So they are organic like this. And now you can see that we can do a lot more expressions. I'm going to do the same with all of them. Like I already did the up eyelid close. I'm going to do it with the low eyelid close and then with the open too. And together we're going to have a lot of range for different expressions. I am also going to do it with the low eyelid and then I'm going to skip the open ones. But I'm going to do this one. I'm going to duplicate 2 times, Ctrl D and Ctrl D. So I have 2 different copies, 1 and 2. And I'm going to rename them with close in and close out. And I'm going to do the same process. So I'm going to close this one. And I only want these vertices to be influenced by the in one. So I'm going to do an inverse selection with Ctrl Shift I, paint, blend shape. And I'm going to look for left low eyelid, close out. That is this one. This is actually for the in because I don't want all these vertices to be influenced. So I'm gonna click 0. And I'm going to do the same. Gonna add a 0.5 here, a 0.25, a 0.75 here, and maybe I also want a 0.25 here. This is a little bit different because we have 2 extra loops on the lower eyelid, so that's why, again, it's not ideal to have different number of loops on the low and upper eyelid, but I will work with that. So I'm gonna change here 0.25. And I am going to do the same with the out. So I'm gonna select this loop, grow my selection, Ctrl-Shift-I, change the weights to 0 for the out. Then I want here a 0.5. And I want a 0.75 on this one. And a 0.25 on this one. So the summatory of all of them is 1. We can be sure that everything is working nicely if we move both together, close in and close out, and this is a blink. So the summatory of all of them is 1. I'm gonna do the same with the open shapes, but I'm gonna skip that process. And I just did the blend shapes for the open, that are these ones. They have exactly the same influence than the closed shapes. So I did exactly the same process. It's a 1 influence, 0.75, 0.5, and 0.25 for the low in shape. And then for the low out shape is the opposite, 0.25, 0.5, and 0.75. And it's the same for the upper ones. Now to finish this, I'm gonna do some extra blend shapes for the upper cheek, or it's like a squint shape, to be able to have extra tension on the eyelids. So I'm gonna start creating one extra blend shape, and I'm going to call it up cheek. And the movement on this shape is gonna be on these loops. So this is going to go up and down. That's the idea. So I'm gonna do 1 for everything, and then I'm gonna divide this shape in 2, just as we did with the eyelids. So I'm gonna send everything up. Probably this one a little bit too. And also forward. So I'm gonna do a better shape because this looks a little bit weird. This is gonna be here. And now I'm gonna use my smooth target tool to have a better transition on this shape. And I'm gonna do that for this area of the eyelid. So now when I move this, I have some movement there. And also in this area a little bit. Okay, I need to move more these vertices. Probably do it manually because I'm not feeling like this is working nicely with the smooth tool. Yeah, I'm gonna use my smooth tool, the normal one. This will work better here. And be sure to don't modify this area, like all this loop of the eyelid. Right now it's not having any influence on this shape, and that's good. Because if we already have our eyelids closed, like with this shape, imagine that we have this. I don't want to modify anything on the blink. So I want the eyelid to stay closed. And if we have some influence on this loop, we're gonna see some crashing when we combine those blend shapes. If we have some influence here, we are gonna see something like that. And I don't want that. So that's why we don't want to have any influence on the last loop of the eyelid. So we can combine this with a closed eyelid shape. And I see that the movement is good, but I need to push all these vertices forward. I'm gonna do that. And this is my final blend shape. Just is looking a lot better. And then I'm going to divide this blend shape into two. So I'm going to duplicate this one, and I'm going to call it in and out. And then I'm going to modify the weights. And I want to remove all these vertices from this shape. So this is left up in. I'm gonna replace to 0, float. And this is gonna be a 0.5 influence. 0.5. And it's gonna be the opposite on the other one. I'm maybe gonna do a 0.25 here. I mean a 0.75 and a 0.25 on this one. That way the transition will be a little bit better. Now I have this movement here, and I'm gonna do the opposite on the other one. I did the opposite on the out cheek shape. If you see, this is the in, 0.75, 0.5, and 0.25. And this is the opposite. So the summatory of all of them is 1. 0.75 plus 0.25 is 1. Then both have 0.5 on this one. And then is 0.75 plus 0.25 here. And they both together work as the blend shape we had at the beginning, the main one. But you can also have control of them separately.